Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 336. I'm afraid of losing connection without alcohol. Hey. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you all? Who listened to Dory's interview last week? Oh my gosh, that was so good, wasn't it? I love her so much. If you haven't listened to that, you should definitely go back and listen to my interview with client Dory last week. But this week, I want to talk about a question that I received from somebody who participated in the pivot. And she wanted to know specifically around this connection that we believe that we have when we drink with other people. And so I'm going to read her question to you. She wrote, "The biggest fear I have about not drinking is a potential loss of emotional connection with other people. My husband and I have a routine of drinking together and having deep conversations. And with friends, I love connecting with people and putting them at ease. And drinking together often feels like the way to do that. I had a recent experience where I met a friend going through something hard. I didn't drink, so she didn't drink, and it felt like we couldn't quite relax or enjoy ourselves. This feels like the biggest barrier to me not socially drinking, the loss of apparent mutual intimacy." So this is such a powerful and honest reflection. So thank you for asking me this question. And if you've ever had a version of this thought or fear, thanks, Jackie Poo, for shaking when I'm recording the podcast. If you've ever had this fear, you are definitely not alone. This is a very common fear that a lot of people have. They worry about their relationships changing or a loss of an emotional connection. And you're not alone. So today we're going to break this down, and I'm going to talk about why this fear exists and what's actually going on beneath it and how to actually build connection without requiring alcohol. So I just want to plant this in your mind before we get into it, is when we think about sort of uncoupling our relationship with alcohol around specific situations, like this is what I talk about, alcohol freedom, where you don't need alcohol in certain situations. Like you can go out with your friends or have an intimate date night with your spouse or partner, or you handle difficult situations, unexpected events without needing to drink. That is alcohol freedom, right? And so imagine you want to change your relationship with alcohol, but you still have to have it in certain situations. That is not having alcohol freedom, right? That is still requiring it, and you need it to manage things. And that doesn't feel great, right? Like it doesn't feel like you could take it or leave it. It feels like I need to have this thing in order to be able to manage this specific thing. And if that feels like you, that just means that you have a strong attachment to it. And when you have a strong attachment to it, it's hard to not do it. And if it's hard to not do it, that's something that we want to explore. Right? We want to get to the place where like, yeah, I don't need alcohol to go out and have, dinner with my friends or to have date night with my husband or to manage a stressful day at work. That is what we're after. You just are unattached to it and you can literally take it or leave it. And so a lot of people resonate with this. And I'm so thankful for this question so we can look at it. But if you have an attachment in these situations, it's just something to explore. Right? And so that's what we're going to do today is around this fear. We're going to explore this fear around a potential loss of a deeper connection that we have with our people. So the fear that you have isn't irrational. It's common and it makes total sense. Alcohol actually does lower our inhibitions. It gives us that little jolt of dopamine that feels good. And then it creates this shared experience that often feels like a connection. That's why so many of us associate it with this closeness, right? This connection that we have with a partner, with friends, even in new social settings, right? It's this shared experience that we have, and it does lower our inhibitions. But this is what I want to offer to you. While these moments, they can feel real, they can feel intimate, they're often fast tracked. They skip the groundwork of a real sustainable emotional safety that you have with people. So think about it like this. When you're drinking with someone, it's like you're stepping onto an express train to connection. But that train isn't always headed to a destination that has deep trust, understanding, and presence. Sometimes it's just looping, right? You get there, but it's like, okay, how did we get here? We needed this thing to get there, right? So if you start removing alcohol from this situation or seriously cutting back, here's what's going to happen. You're going to become more aware of everything, your body, your nervous system, your thoughts, your energy. And that awareness can feel uncomfortable, right? You might question yourself. You may not feel very comfortable in your own skin. You might worry about what you're going to say and how it's going to perceive, right? And you might interpret that discomfort as like, we're not connecting. This is distracting, right? This, it feels off. I'm not comfortable. But in reality, what's happening is you're getting to know yourself in that moment, right? And you're experiencing a human moment with your full presence without numbing or altering yourself with alcohol. It's not that you can't connect without it. It's just that you're learning how to do something and how to do it without a drug. And that just takes time. Without learning how to connect without alcohol is probably going to be a slower process, right? We want to connect immediately. We want to sit down. We want those inhibitions to be removed. We want to just like get into it, right? And so this is a skill that you have to learn. I had to learn this too. I did not know how to do this until I was 40 years old. Okay, because when I think about like even in high school, there may have been marijuana or there may have been alcohol, right? There's other things involved that we were doing that brought that connection for us, right? And then I went into college and all of my social experiences there were around drinking and partying on the weekends. And I got that connection through that, right? And so I was 40 years old after I had my kids, after I was working professionally for a long time, where I had to learn how to be with myself and know what that felt like. And that was awkward. I remember the first party I went to for my friend's birthday. I went there and I was like, I'm not drinking. I was on my initial break of alcohol for that 90-day period that I've mentioned many times. And I had a plan. I'm like, I'm not drinking. I want to go there and I want to feel what this feels like to not drink in a social situation. And so the focus was just on myself at first, to like observe myself in that situation. And I went there and it was so awkward and it was so uncomfortable. I had nothing in my hands. And I just remember kind of like standing in the middle of the room and like my vibe was definitely not on. Like I probably, if somebody was observing me, like, you're weird, you look awkward. But it was awkward and strange and I felt uncomfortable and I only made it like 90 minutes and then I left. But that was my plan. I'm like, I'm going to go try this. I'm going to go on the early end of the party and then I'm going to leave. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I did that. And that wasn't that bad, right? And then I did it again. And like by the third time I did this, I was like, okay, I'm not going to die. I know that it's okay. And now I can start building that connection with other people and trying to have conversations. And then I had to do that, right? And so it's just a slower process, but it is absolutely way more real. You're connecting with yourself. And then when you're able to then you can connect with other people. So looking at that, like sort of that process and how do we do this, right? So I'm going to talk about that now. So how do we build connection without alcohol? First, you want to observe yourself just like I did. You want to observe your own self in your own body. So you can do this by sort of like getting grounded into your body. So before you go into a social setting, or if it's an intimate conversation at home or with a friend or whatever, take a moment to pause, feel your feet on the floor, breathe into your belly and remind yourself, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm safe in this moment. I think it's really important to acknowledge where you are. So I talk a lot about the stop, notice, and process. Stop and notice what is happening for you in your body right now. Maybe it's like, okay, I'm noticing my heart is racing a little bit. I notice that my throat feels a little tight. I notice that my palms might be a little sweaty. You just want to be aware of it. You don't want to judge it. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling nervous about this moment at all, because you're learning how to do something new, right? Once you do that and you sort of kind of get grounded and you're stopping and you're noticing, maybe you take a couple deep breaths. If you're with somebody else, you could ask a simple question like, what has been going on for you lately? How are you feeling about fill in the blank? Or what has been making you happy today? These are like deeper questions that can bring in that level of intimacy that opens up different sort of levels of conversations, right? And you don't need booze to do it. And it can be so weird and awkward, just name it. So I love this approach too. So if those kind of questions are feeling like, no way, can I just open up with that? It could be like, I am here right now and I'm practicing not drinking in social situations or on one-on-ones with people. And so I'm feeling very awkward. And this is new for me. And I'm learning how to do this. But I'm so glad to be here with you. Right? That sharing that is actually you kind of bearing your soul a little bit. That's vulnerability. And vulnerability bridges connection. And you can even talk about it. You could be like, this is very interesting. I'm an adult and honestly, this is a tough one for me because I've always used alcohol to help myself open up, and I'm recognizing that I'm kind of socially awkward. For me, and then just reflecting back on my own journey with changing my relationship with alcohol, I thought I was an extrovert for my whole life. I was in pharmaceutical sales and marketing and, these sort of outward like expressions, like I connected to people and I was out there and I had a lot of energy. And then when I stopped drinking for this period of time, I recognized I was more of an introvert and that I was socially awkward and that I had anxiety around social situations and having to go up and talk to people and, get into conversations with people. And that's still the same way I am now, 7 years later. It's just kind of like learning about yourself and what's actually there and learning how to be with that version of yourself, right? And that's a process, and you have to be patient and you have to be willing to go through that. But sharing that about yourself is just so important because that's actually real, right? The alcohol is, it can create false connection. You really actually can't have a deep, I don't want to say this because I know a lot of people have deep connections with people and they drink together, but remove that and then what's left, right? Like what is there when you remove the alcohol? That will show you, right? Like what kind of connections you actually have. And I also want to offer let the moment that you're in just be enough. Trust that your presence and your full humanity in that moment, sharing with somebody, is enough. Even a quiet evening can be connecting, right? It takes time. Imagine your alcohol freedom goal, right? That we don't want to be so attached to things to get into this place. Lots of people have intimate connections without drinking. A lot of people don't drink. Kids, right? Think about little kids or religious groups or, groups of people that typically don't drink, right? They have real connections. So I just want you to know that it's possible. And it's a process to get there. And you have to be willing to feel uncomfortable with it. You have to be willing, if you really want that intimate connection with them, sharing with the other person what is going on with you. And those are really interesting conversations. I promise you. I am living proof of this. I have more friends now that are way more meaningful, and I'm way deeper connected with people now that I don't drink. Before, it was superficial stuff. Like we would get around, we would bitch, we would drink, we would just kind of ha ha ha. I wouldn't remember the conversations, that intimacy, right? But now when I think about getting together with my friends, I remember that and it lasts with me so much longer. And I keep thinking about how much fun we had and how awesome it was and how I can't wait to do it again. And we talk about, we continue the conversations over text or phone or Marco Polo, right? After we are done hanging out. And the drinking conversations that we had, yeah, we would talk about serious stuff, or maybe we got into the deeper stuff quicker. But I didn't remember what that was like. The only thing that would happen the next day is like I would feel like shit. And that's what I would be focusing on, is like, oh my God, I drank too much last night, right? I'm not really reflecting on those amazing conversations that we had. Remember that your brain is scared of change. And so it will throw up these objections to changing your relationship with alcohol because it's just scared of change. That is a real thing. And so whenever fear is involved, if you're scared of losing intimacy or you're scared of your relationship changing, just know that that's what happens when you are wanting to change something. Your brain is going to throw up some fear because it doesn't like unknown things, okay? That is absolutely normal. It's like maybe there's, look at something outside of alcohol. Maybe you have a new opportunity for a new job, or maybe you're thinking about retiring earlier, or maybe you're thinking about buying a new home or ending a relationship, right? There's always going to be fear involved. But if you let the fear dictate your decisions, you will not move forward as fast as you possibly could, right? So that fear is just holding you back because it's doing its job. The fear is just telling you, hey, this might be painful. Have you thought about this? And we don't want you to experience pain, so we're going to try to protect you. That's what the fear is doing. That's doing its job. There's nothing wrong with you for having it, but I'm inviting you to rise up and recognize, okay, this is a fear response. What is the actual risk here? The actual risk is that you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to experience a difficult emotion in the moment that you're in when you're not drinking with your friend or your partner. That's it. It's just going to be a little uncomfortable. And we for sure can handle that. You can handle a little discomfort. I promise you. Like, there's not really a big risk in doing this. If you can verbalize how you're feeling with your friend, try to, gain a more intimate connection with your personal experience with this. You're not going to die. Nobody's going to get hurt, and you can keep trying. And it does get easier over time. The actual risk is letting the fear dictate what you do, and then you don't grow. You don't grow and evolve, and you don't change your relationship with alcohol. And when that happens, is like the biggest risk is not living the life that you actually want to live. You want to change your relationship with alcohol. And we've got to be able to recognize that this is a fear and there's not a real big risk here. Sure. Will some relationships change? Maybe, right? That might happen. Give it an opportunity first. When I was doing this at the very beginning, instead of meeting my friends at night and drinking, I would be like, let's go for a hike. Let's meet for coffee in the middle of the day, right? Or in the morning or on the weekend morning. Like, I just shifted the activities that we did together so that, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to sit here at a bar. I'm going to come over at night and not have to, I just made it a different circumstance so that we could still connect. And think about other times that you're doing things with people, right? Like, you do other things during the day or in work situations where you're not drinking and you're able to have conversations and you can connect with people, right? And so open up your mind, expand your vision here a little bit. Be like, how can I still do this? How can I still keep the connections with people and still work on my relationship with alcohol? So get into creative mode. Look at different ways you can approach this. Change the time when you meet. Try different activities. Start with small little doses of this, right? Maybe it's like normally you sit down, you're going out to dinner, you're meeting up or something, and you immediately order a bottle of wine. Can you sit there for 30 minutes and try to have a conversation without drinking and then order your drink? Like, they can be small shifts where you can experience this, what I'm talking about, and play with it. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So the little small changes that you can make are usually the ones that last. So maybe it's just this week, the next social engagement that you have. Can you just do an hour, right? Where you're like, hey, I'm really trying to not unmarry this need to drink every time I get together socially. A lot of you guys are retired, or, you want to be super social and you have a lot of social events going on. So imagine what that would be like to still connect with your people and not have to drink every time. And you really save, if you're wanting to keep alcohol in your life, to just very special occasions, right? And you still go out and you have a good time with your people, but you don't have to drink to have a good time or to connect with them. It is possible, I promise you, but it does take a little willingness to notice your fear and to feel a little bit uncomfortable as you learn how to do this. And hopefully this podcast will help you be brave to try something new this week. I'd love to hear from you if you've tried this, and what that experience is like for you. And if it doesn't go well, you can always try again. That's what this is all about, right? Like, okay, how can I make this better next time? What could I do differently, right? Learn from it and keep going. I love you all, and we will talk to you next week.